Claire Harris, CEO of Harris Industries, stood in her sleek office, eyes fixed on the live news broadcast. Her world had just fractured. The screen flickered with the words, "Scandal rocks, Harris Industries, CAO under investigation for fraud." The words seemed to hang in the air, deafening her senses. She couldn't breathe. Every sound in the room was muted, as though a storm was rushing toward her, one she could not outrun. She tried to grasp at her thoughts, but the room began to spin. How had this happened? Her own people turning on her. No time to recover. The phone rang. An anonymous number. She hesitated before answering, knowing this could be the beginning of the end. "We have the proof, Claire. You need to act fast or it's over." The voice was calm, controlled, almost too calm. "Who is this?" she demanded, but the line went silent. The screen blared louder, the scandal now irreversible. Every ounce of trust she had placed in the people around her was eroding like sand. Claire's gaze fell to the folder on her desk, marked urgent. She'd hoped it was just a misunderstanding. But as the camera zoomed out, her face fell. She knew what had to be done next. Her empire had just been shattered, and now the only question was whether she could rebuild it, or whether her fall was inevitable. The room felt suffocating. Claire could feel the weight of her decisions pressing down on her as the storm raged outside. Jack Thompson, her confidant and longtime advisor, entered her office. He closed the door softly behind him, his face unreadable. "You've seen the news," he said, his voice calm but heavy with concern. "We're in a tough spot, Claire, but I've been through worse. We can fix this." Claire didn't respond immediately, her mind racing through the possibilities. Was there really a way out? She looked up at Jack, searching for reassurance in his steely eyes. "How do you propose we fix this, Jack?" she asked, her voice tight with frustration. Jack paused for a moment, his hands clasped in front of him. "We start by finding out who's behind this. Someone leaked the information, and that's how it started. We need to take control back." Claire leaned forward, her resolve hardening. "Then let's find out who betrayed me." It was time to fight back, no more running. Later that evening, Claire found herself in an unexpected confrontation. Martin Russell, once her most trusted ally, had been her right hand for years. But now, standing in front of her, his eyes gleamed with a coldness she didn't recognize. "You're not the person I thought you were, Claire," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "All that ambition, it's finally come back to bite you." Claire's blood ran cold. It wasn't just a leak. Martin had orchestrated it all. "You think you can destroy me?" she asked, her voice calm but deadly. Martin smirked, stepping closer. "I'm just finishing what you started. It's always been about power, hasn't it?" Claire's hands balled into fists, but she stayed composed. "If you think this is over, you're wrong," she said, her voice steely. "This is just the beginning." Claire left the meeting, her heart pounding in her chest. Martin's betrayal was a gut punch, one she hadn't seen coming. Outside, Emily, her young assistant, caught up with her. "What happened?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. Claire's gaze was distant. "He was behind it all. Martin set me up." Emily's eyes widened in shock. "We can still fight this, Claire. You're not alone in this." Claire turned to face her, determination hardening her features. "I know, Emily. But it's time to turn the tables. I will not let him take everything from me." Back in her office, Claire stared at the screen, the email from Martin sitting in her inbox. She clicked it open and read the chilling message I'd over. "You're done." Claire closed her eyes. Betrayal, in its most brutal form. The weight of the situation threatened to crush her. The phone rang, and Claire answered without hesitation. "We need to talk," Jack said. "We're going on the offensive. Prepare yourself." Claire nodded, steeling herself for what was to come. It was time to take control. Claire sat in the dim light of her office, the storm outside now a constant drumbeat against the glass. Jack stood beside her, his jaw tight, eyes locked on the list of internal communications they'd pulled. "We've narrowed the leak to 3 possible people," he said. Claire leaned forward, scanning the names. One of them she had trusted for over a decade. "If I confront them, they'll deny it," she murmured. Jack crossed his arms. Then we don't confront, we corner them. Her pulse quickened. She hated playing games, but this was survival. Set up a meeting, she ordered. Make them think it's routine. Jack's nod was curt, the weight of the moment heavy between them. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating Claire's reflection in the window, a woman on the edge but unwilling to fall. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the rage simmering beneath her calm exterior. She was done reacting. Now she would strike first. The boardroom was silent, except for the faint hum of the AC. Claire entered, heels striking the polished floor with a deliberate rhythm. The three suspects sat waiting, expressions carefully neutral, hands folded. She took her seat at the head of the table, her gaze sweeping over them. "We're here to discuss operational discrepancies," she began, her tone clipped. One of them, a wiry man named Peterson, avoided her eyes. She noticed. "Transparency is everything in this company," she continued. "When that's broken, the foundation collapses." Peterson shifted uncomfortably. Jack, seated beside her, silently slid a folder toward her. Inside were printed emails, proof of betrayal. Claire didn't open it yet. She wanted them to sweat. Her silence filled the room like smoke, suffocating and inescapable. Hours later, Claire met with her former mentor, Robert Kane, in a quiet, dimly lit bar downtown. Robert was a relic of the industry. Early 70s, silver hair, eyes that had seen too much. "I warned you, Claire," he said, his voice gravelly. "This business eats its own." She sipped her whiskey, the burn grounding her. "And yet, you survived." He gave a humorless chuckle. "Survived, yes, but not intact." He leaned closer. "If you want to win, you'll have to be willing to burn the entire house down." His words settled over her like smoke. Heavy, acrid, impossible to ignore. She realized then that her fight would not be about preserving what she had, but about rebuilding something entirely new from the ashes. Back in her apartment, Claire spread files across her marble kitchen island. Photos, documents, financial reports, it all painted a picture she didn't want to see. Martin's fingerprints were everywhere, but there was another name she didn't recognize. "Who the hell are you?" she whispered to herself. Emily, who had insisted on staying late, leaned over her shoulder. "That's a holding company. Foreign registered. Could be a shadow investor." Claire's heart pounded. An unseen hand was guiding this attack. It wasn't just Martin. She straightened, resolve hardening like steel. "Then we find them, and we pull them into the light." The next morning, Claire arrived at the office early, the city still waking. She stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee in hand, watching the first rays of sunlight pierce the skyline. This was the calm before the storm she was about to unleash. Jack entered, carrying a manila envelope. "We traced the holding company," he said. Claire turned to face him, her eyes sharp. "And?" Jack opened the envelope, revealing a single name. Claire's stomach tightened. She knew it. "This changes everything," she murmured. Her voice was low, steady. The battle lines were no longer blurred. They were carved deep in stone. The name inside the envelope was like a knife in Claire's chest. Daniel Mercer. A shadow investor she had once courted, never suspecting his true intentions. Jack's voice broke the silence. "He's been funding Martin from the start." Claire felt the sting of betrayal deepen. Mercer wasn't just an investor. He was a predator, buying influence from the shadows. "Then he's the one I need to crush," she said, her voice low but venomous. Jack leaned in. "If you move against him, you'll be declaring war." Claire smirked, though her eyes stayed cold. "War's already here, Jack. He just doesn't know it yet." She turned toward the window, the morning light sharpening her reflection into something almost unrecognizable, a woman shedding her last illusions. Claire arranged a chance encounter with Martin at a charity gala that evening. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and crystal glasses, but her eyes locked on her enemy. Martin was all charm, shaking hands, laughing easily, but when he saw her, the smile faltered. She stepped into his path, her champagne untouched in her hand. "Enjoying the party?" she asked. Martin's eyes narrowed. I know what you're doing, Claire. She leaned closer, voice soft but lethal. You should. I learned from the best. The band played on, oblivious, but between them, the air crackled with unspoken threats. Later, Claire sat in her car outside Mercer's private estate, the iron gates looming before her. Emily sat in the passenger seat, clutching a tablet. Security's tight, Emily whispered. We can't just walk in. Claire stared at the gate, her reflection fractured in the glass. Then we don't walk. We slip in through the cracks. She nodded toward the tablet. Get me his offshore accounts, every last shell company. I want him exposed before he knows I've touched a thing. Emily hesitated, but Claire's glare silenced her. This wasn't about defense anymore. It was about dismantling the man piece by piece. By midnight, Jack had joined them in Claire's apartment, the documents spread out once again. Offshore accounts, secret deals, hidden board influence. Mercer's web stretched farther than they imagined. He owns 3 of your suppliers, Jack said grimly. Claire's pulse pounded. This was not just sabotage, it was an infiltration years in the making. Then we pull them out from under him, she said, her tone ice. Jack raised an eyebrow. That'll collapse half your production. Claire met his gaze. Better I burn it down myself than let him own it. The next morning, Claire walked into the trading floor of Harris Industries for the first time in months. Conversations halted, eyes tracking her every move. She moved like a blade through the crowd, heading straight to the trading supervisor's desk. Pull our orders from these suppliers immediately, she said, sliding over a list. The man hesitated. That will cause market panic. Claire smiled without warmth. Let them panic. It's better than bleeding out slowly. The room stayed silent as she walked away, heels clicking like a countdown. Claire's bold withdrawal from Mercer-controlled suppliers had sent shockwaves through the market. By noon, stock prices trembled. In the war room, a converted conference room with screens showing live market feeds, Jack paced, phone in hand. They're already spinning the narrative, he warned. Claire sat at the head of the table, her gaze fixed on a plummeting chart. Let them. Fear makes people careless, she replied, her tone calm but lethal. Emily rushed in with a tablet. Mercer's media arm just leaked a confidential report claiming Harris Industries is facing bankruptcy. Claire's jaw tightened. Then we'll give them a headline they can't control. By mid-afternoon, Claire was on the floor of a major news network studio, standing in front of cameras. She wore the calm, measured expression of a leader in control. The anchor asked about the rumors of bankruptcy. Claire smiled faintly. Harris Industries is not falling apart. We are evolving. Sometimes you have to cut away the rot to let the tree grow stronger. The statement was rehearsed, but the fire in her voice was real. She knew Mercer was watching, and she wanted him to hear the defiance. That night, Mercer's retaliation came fast. A fake whistleblower statement appeared online, accusing Claire of insider trading. Jack slammed the printed post onto her desk. If this sticks, you're done. Claire scanned the words without blinking. It won't stick. Emily hovered nearby, nervous. How can you be sure? Claire stood, moving to the window. Because I'm about to make Mercer's own people turn on him. She picked up her phone, dialing a number she hadn't called in years. The next day, Claire met with Lydia Grant, Mercer's longtime CFO, in a secluded corner of an upscale restaurant. Lydia was in her late 40s, sharp-eyed and visibly tense. Why should I risk crossing him? Lydia asked. Claire leaned in. Because he's planning to throw you under the bus next. Lydia's fork froze mid-air. Claire slid a folder across the table, evidence of Mercer's hidden accounts. Lydia glanced at the pages, her lips tightening. If I do this, there's no going back. Claire's reply was instant. Exactly. Hours later, Lydia's encrypted files arrived in Claire's inbox, proof of Mercer's fraudulent transfers. Claire called Jack immediately. We have him. Jack's voice was low, almost reverent. Then this is the moment. Claire leaned back in her chair, feeling the weight shift. For the first time in weeks, the balance of power wasn't against her. She allowed herself a small, dangerous smile. Tell everyone. Harris Industries is going to war. Morning light spilled into Claire's office, but the mood was anything but calm. Jack stood by the screens, watching Mercer's stock tumble in real time. The leak is working, he said, voice low. Claire didn't look up from her laptop. Not a leak, Jack. A controlled demolition. She clicked to send a press release exposing Mercer's shell companies. Emily entered, breathless. Media's running it already. He's trending worldwide. Claire's eyes narrowed. Good. Now he knows how it feels to have the floor ripped out from under him. She leaned back, her mind already moving to the next strike. By afternoon, Mercer finally moved. His legal team filed an injunction against Harris Industries, demanding the removal of the damaging reports. Claire was in the boardroom when the call came. He's desperate, Jack said after hanging up. And dangerous. Claire turned to the board members, most of whom looked uneasy. Let him drag us into court, she said. Every filing is another opportunity to put his crimes on record. A few nodded hesitantly, but one older member muttered, You're gambling the company. Claire's reply was icy. No, I'm gambling on the truth. That night, Claire's apartment was lit only by the glow of her laptop and the city beyond. On her screen, an anonymous message, he's coming for you personally. She read it twice, then closed the lid. Emily sat on the couch watching her. We could stop, Claire. You've done enough damage. Claire poured herself a drink. Enough isn't enough until he's incapable of hurting anyone again. The glass trembled in her hand, not from fear, but from the adrenaline coursing through her. War had consumed her, and she had no intention of walking away. The following morning, Claire made her most aggressive move yet. She called a live press conference in the lobby of Harris Industries. Cameras flashed as she stepped to the podium. We are initiating legal proceedings against Daniel Mercer for fraud, market manipulation, and corporate sabotage, she declared. The reporters erupted with questions, but Claire's voice cut through them like steel. This ends now. It wasn't just a statement, it was a declaration of open war in front of the world. By nightfall, Mercer's empire was buckling. News outlets dissected every accusation, shareholders demanded answers, and his allies began to scatter. Claire stood alone in her office, watching the chaos unfold on her screens. Jack entered quietly. You've done it, he said. Claire didn't turn. Not yet, she replied, eyes fixed on the headlines. The fight's over when he has nothing left to lose, and we're not there. Outside, the city lights glittered like 1,000 watchful eyes, bearing witness to the storm she had unleashed. The storm Claire had unleashed was now turning. A late-night courier delivered a single envelope to her apartment. Inside, photos. Private moments twisted out of context, clearly meant to ruin her reputation. Jack examined them grimly. Mercer's gone personal, he said. Claire's stomach tightened, but her voice was steady. Then I hit him where it hurts most. His own circle. She glanced at Emily, who was already pulling up files. We find someone close to him. Someone who'll trade loyalty for survival. Her eyes hardened, she would not flinch. The next day, Claire tracked down Mercer's head of security, a burly man named Trent, who had worked for him for over a decade. They met in a dim underground parking garage. I'm not here to bribe you, she said. I'm here to tell you that if you stay, you'll go down with him. Trent's jaw worked silently as she slid a folder toward him, bank statements linking Mercer to illegal arms deals. You didn't get this from me, she added. Trent took the folder without a word, but the slight nod he gave before walking away told her enough. By evening, Trent's intel reached her. Mercer was hosting a closed-door meeting at his penthouse. Claire studied the blueprints on her screen. If we intercept the comms feed, we'll have his entire plan, Emily said. Jack frowned. And if he catches us? Claire's voice was ice. Then we'll have nothing left to lose. The weight of her words silenced the room. For the first time, even Jack looked unsure. Claire didn't care. This was the only way to end it. That night, In a darkened surveillance van 2 blocks from Mercer's penthouse, Claire listened to the live feed. Voices crackled through the headset, Mercer discussing payouts to allies and threats to finish her. Her pulse pounded, but she stayed still, recording every word. Emily worked frantically on her laptop beside her, capturing the data. "Got it," Emily whispered. Claire leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Then let's burn him with his own fire." By dawn, the recordings were on every major news outlet. Mercer's voice, his threats, his deals. It was all public. The fallout was instant. Claire stood on her balcony, the city waking beneath her. Jack joined her quietly. "He's finished," he said. Claire didn't answer right away, watching the sun rise over the skyline. "No, Jack," she said finally. "This is just the beginning of the reckoning." The sky above the courthouse was heavy with storm clouds, the air electric with anticipation. Claire stepped from the Blacktown car, the echo of her heels sharp against the marble steps. Jack stayed close, shielding her from the crush of cameras as reporters shouted questions, accusations, demands, speculation. She didn't flinch. Every step felt like a declaration she had survived worse than this. Jack's voice was low but urgent. "They'll try to break you before you reach the stand." Claire's gaze never wavered. "Then I'll make sure they see what unbreakable looks like." Inside, Mercer stood waiting, his lawyers arrayed like soldiers. The smirk on his face was pure provocation. Claire met his stare, and in that unblinking exchange, the day's battle lines were drawn without a single word. The courtroom was a theater of restraint, polished wood, echoing silence, and every eye fixed on the two of them. Claire sat at the plaintiff's table, posture razor straight, her legal team fanned out beside her. Across the aisle, Mercer lounged in calculated arrogance, tapping his pen against the table like a metronome of contempt. The judge entered, commanding instant quiet. Piece by piece, the prosecution laid out the case. Emails, offshore account ledgers, signed authorizations with Mercer's own name. The sound of each exhibit being stamped into the record was like a drum beat. Then Lydia took the stand. Her voice didn't shake as she recounted Mercer's private admissions, her words crisp, deadly, undeniable. Claire didn't look away from him, not once. She wanted him to see exactly how his empire was collapsing, in real time, in public. Midway through testimony, Mercer leaned to his lawyer and whispered, a move Claire recognized, his last desperate pivot. Moments later, his attorney stood, accusing her of destroying evidence. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge's brow furrowed, tension coiling in the air. Claire's attorney rose calmly, pulling from his briefcase a sealed archive envelope. "Your Honor, these are the original files, unaltered and time-stamped by an independent third party." The judge examined them, nodding slowly before leveling a hard stare at Mercer's table. A murmur rolled through the gallery like the first wave of a storm breaking. Claire allowed herself the smallest breath of satisfaction. Mercer had just overplayed his hand. Hours later, after relentless testimony and cross-examination, the jury returned. Claire's heartbeat was a steady, controlled drum. The judge's voice carried through the still air. "We find the defendant guilty on all counts." A sharp intake of breath came from Mercer's side. His shoulders sagged, his carefully cultivated mask cracking for the first time. Jack's hand found Claire's shoulder, a silent anchor amid the shifting ground. Outside the courthouse, cameras were already waiting, hungry for a statement. But inside, for one suspended moment, there was only the knowledge that she had done exactly what she came here to do: drag him into the light and make him answer for every strike he had dealt. That night, Claire stood on her balcony. The city stretched before her in a sea of lights. The hum of traffic rose faintly from the streets below, but up here it was quiet. She thought about the months of war, about what it had cost, and what it had left behind. Her phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number lit the screen. "This isn't over." She stared at it, the glow reflecting faintly in her eyes. Slowly, she set the phone face down on the railing. In the glass reflection, She no longer saw the woman who'd been ambushed by scandal. She saw the one who had walked through fire and emerged tempered steel. Whatever came next, she was ready.